With its rugged casing and the ability to track both bouldering and indoor climbing, I wanted to push the Garmin Instinct 2 Solar a little bit further than what the trackings were intended for. I also tried it with rock climbing as well. This is my experience with it. The two tracking options do different things. Bouldering allows you to input the difficulty of your current route. When you finish one try in bouldering, you have the option to choose completed, attempted, or discard the whole activity. Then it pauses. Then pressing the set button allows you to start a new route. You can also edit the routes, both in the watch and in Garmin Connect. Indoor climbing is a little bit different though. Or at least that was what I initially thought it was for a long time. Straight out of the box, the indoor climbing comes with an automated form of tracking that is not exactly intuitive or very useful in my opinion. I looked up how to perform indoor climbing at Garmin's website, and there's a setting in the tracking menu to enable route statistics, in which turns the indoor climbing into something very similar to the bouldering tracking, now giving data on the difficulty on each route. This meant I had to rewrite and postpone this review when I figured that out. I was about to critique Garmin for not having a very useful tracking features with the indoor climbing. Turns out it has, but it has to be enabled through the indoor climbing settings menu. Now you can enter the route difficulty before starting it and enter the eventual number of falls when ended. And as you can see, there's a plethora of rating systems to choose between. So when you start an indoor climbing session, now it locks the screen and you'll have to long press the GPS button in order to unlock it. In the data screen for the previous route, you can now see the time, height and falls. This is very nice. Something I would really like to have is the opportunity to enter the amount of pauses in the wall at certain heights when registered. The tracking without route statistics is a lot more simple. You start the tracking and just leave it like that. I guess that with a built-in altimeter, the Instinct 2 Solar uses that alongside its motion sensors and figure out whether you're starting a route or when you're ended, as well as when you're pausing. It has been a bit of a hit and miss with the altitude though. A couple of days ago, I was almost at the top of a wall at 10 meters, but the watch showed it was at 5 meters. It isn't always as precise in knowing whether you're continuing another try on a difficult route or just having a pause in the wall. It always vibrates, giving a notification whenever you're having a pause, something I think can be a little bit of a security issue as it can be a little bit distracting. I tried out the third type of tracking, or I just pressed the indoor climbing for outdoor rock climbing. I think Garmin with a little effort could make rock climbing tracking, as I only wish for the ability to enable to set the GPS position for where I did rock climbing. When rock climbing, I felt a lot safer using the Instinct 2 Solar over the Vivo Active 4 given its housing. But still, with rock climbing and bouldering, there's always a chance of hitting into something or scratching the watch. And sometimes, if you need to squeeze your hand into a crack in the wall or similar, the watch might come in the way or even worse, lead to dangerous situations, particularly if you're trad climbing. The indoor climbing was a little bit confusing in the beginning. Unlocking the route statistics opened up a much more dynamic and powerful tracking as a whole, and I recommend everyone doing this for more comprehensive route statistics. And also, a huge thanks to GPS Training for borrowing this device to me. Check out their podcast, their YouTube channel, their website, and especially their online services when you can learn everything about your Garmin or a certain GPS device. I asked some of my climbing friends what potentially use cases they saw in tracking their climbing. One of the responses was to see how the pulse data when climbing with trad or changing ropes, seeing how the pulse eventually went up. One of my friends also said that it was really nice to see how far above the ground he was at any given time. He stated that tracking climbing is something he could see himself doing for fun, but not necessarily a very useful thing. Another friend of mine said that it was really nice to use it as a way of tracking progression on certain routes, especially for indoor climbing. I think the Instinct 2 Solar is one of the better candidates of tracking climbing and bouldering though, given its rugged case. Even though the Epics or the Phoenix lines are relatively well protected, the raised frame combined with a smaller screen make me less worried about bumping into rocks or accidentally scratching it. And that might be why Garmin doesn't offer rock climbing or outdoor bouldering as an option to begin with. By not encouraging their users to damage the watch on the rock wall, it could also be a possible security risk, either being in the way when getting into tight spots, especially when trad climbing, or being simply just a distraction. I would love to see the ability to do rock climbing and outdoor bouldering though with the GPS position of where I was. But overall, the indoor climbing and bouldering does a good enough job with all types in most cases. I think being able to track climbing is a very nice feature to have in a very long list of trackings the Garmin Instinct 2 can do. And the Garmin Instinct 2 proves to be mostly a very good bouldering and climbing companion. So what do you guys think? Do you have any questions regarding the climbing and bouldering with Garmin Instinct 2 Solar? Leave a comment below, leave a like on this video if you want to see more, and consider subscribing.